So it'll be a fun game. Alrighty. On these ones, the first three, you were asked to graph, label the vertex, identify the axis of symmetry. Guys, who can just tell me with words what is the axis of symmetry? What's it look like? Where is it? Okay, it goes through the vertex. What else can you tell me about it?
It's the x-coordinate of the vertex.
It is the x-coordinate of the vertex. What does it do to the graph? Cuts it in half so that it's symmetrical on each side of that line or axis of symmetry. So yes, it goes through the vertex. Yes, it's the x goes through the x-coordinate of the vertex. And you must have x equals for your axis of symmetry because it is the equation of that vertical line. All right, any questions on these? All right, this next group, make sure you scroll down enough to notice that there were 4 matching. These were all matching. So you just had to match 13, 14, 15, and 16. I thought these were fairly simple if you just think about where your vertex is. Questions? This form is called vertex form. It's called vertex form because can you quickly see, all right, it's vertically stretched. Does that affect my vertex from 0, 0? No. Then it went which way? Right 3 and up 1. So my vertex is at 3, 1. This one went left 1 and up 3. It's at -1, 3. So you can very quickly pick out your vertex. Therefore, it's called vertex form. Today, we're going to talk a lot more about a form called standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's go ahead and get our blue sheets casted. You will need your calculators maybe. So let's go ahead and get those out if you're calculator dependent. All right.
Thank you.
All right, do I have all the blue sheets, guys? Okay, so you might remember from Algebra 1, and this is all on your first part of your notes. If A is positive, what can you tell me about your parabola? It opens what? Up. If A is negative, it opens down. So maybe you remember those two pieces. If A is positive, it opens up. If A is negative, it opens down. The next thing is the equation for the, I'm not there yet. The graph is narrower when the absolute value of A is greater than 1. Now, why does it say absolute value? Because the negative just makes it flip. So that the negative doesn't have anything to do about whether it's wider or narrower. So just take the negative off, look at the number. If it's bigger than 1, it's a stretch, so it gets narrower. If it's between 0 and 1, it gets wider because it's a compression. All right. Next piece. This is the, oh my goodness gracious. The axis, I'm having all kinds of issues. This is why I redid it from my earlier class because the board was giving me problems. The axis of symmetry is x equals the opposite of b over 2a. You guys remember that from Algebra 1. You were taught it in Algebra 1. X, and no matter whether you were in honors or regular, x equals opposite of b over 2a. That is the equation for the axis of symmetry. Then to find the vertex, well, what do we know? You guys told me that this was the x-coordinate of the vertex. So isn't that the x-coordinate? And then to find y, you just take that x value, plug it back into the equation, and find out what y is. So I think that finding the vertex is easier when we do that on our own. Let's talk about the y-intercept. How do you guys find the y-intercept? Do you guys remember what we do? What do you do to find the y-intercept? You let what? X x be 0. So if I come into this equation and I let all my x's be 0, what is 0 squared? Times a. 0. What's b times 0? Plus c. What's 0 plus 0 plus c? C. So do you guys see that the y-intercept would be at the point 0, c? So this c value is always going to be your y-intercept. You also learned that in Algebra 1. Okay, the y-intercept is your c value. So that's everything in a nutshell that you guys learned from Algebra 1. In a quick review, let's take a look at a problem from this. Graph this function, 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. Notice it's in standard form now. We can't tell which way it's shifted. Label the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Okay, so, cool. I've been calling you a lot too. All right, cool. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. What are we going to do first? Find the axis of symmetry. Okay, well, I always come off to the side. I'm big on this. What's A, what's B, and what's C? Those of you who've had me in the past know that I do this. What's the value of A?
3.
What's B?
-6.
And what's C?
1.
So what's the formula for the axis of symmetry?
Negative or opposite B over 2A.
Don't forget the x equals opposite of B over 2A. So what's the opposite of -6?
6.
Over 2 times,
3.
what's 2 times 3?
6.
And what's 6 over 6?
1.
So x equals, don't forget the x equals. Yes, you have to have, bless you, yes, you have to have x equals. The equation of the axis of symmetry, that's a vertical line. So this crosses the x-axis at 1. Questions so far? All right, now we got to find the vertex. So this one, your seat partner there, Mr. Gavin. Gavin, what's another way to say f of x equals? Isn't that the same thing as what? Is it the same thing as y?
Y.
Okay, so this is the same thing as y equals. So let's think about this once. My vertex, we know the x-coordinate, it's what?
1.
1. We just have to find,
Y.
and we know y is equal to 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. But x is?
1.
So we're going to do 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 plus 1. So you just plug that 1 back into the equation. You plug x equals 1 back into that equation. What's order of operations? What's 1 squared
1.
times 3?
3.
Minus
-6.
plus 1. So what are you going to get there?
-3 plus
Ne-
1, so -2.
-2. So the vertex is at the point 1, -2. Over 1, down to, ooh, by the way, is this parabola going to open up or down in y? Everybody. Why does it open up? What's it? A. A is positive, so we know it's going to open up. All right, well, we have one more point that would be helpful for us to graph, and that would be the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept again? It's at the point what, everybody? C, 0, C. What's C? 1. So the y-intercept, remember? The y-intercept is at the point 0, C. In this case, it would be at 0, 1. So I'm going to go over 0, up 1. And I'm going to reflect that point because I know it's symmetrical about the y-axis. Now, how many points do you need every time you graph a quadratic? 5. Are you allowed to use the graphing piece of your graphing calculator? No, because you're not going to be allowed on your quiz next week. Okay? So, we're going to come in and we're going to make a quick little 2-second teeny table of values. So I need to pick one more x value. So as I move away from my axis of symmetry, I already used 0. So now I'm going to go to what? -1. So now plug -1 in for x back into this equation. So now you can plug -1. So some of you will do this by hand. Some of you, I've already heard the caps coming off the calculators. That's fine. Just make sure you put your -1 in parentheses when you put that in your calculator. What'd you guys all get when you put in -1? Everybody thinks they're wrong. You're not wrong. What'd you get? 10. Why does everybody think they're wrong on that? Okay. 3 times -1 squared minus 6 times -1 plus 1. What's -1 times -1? Times 3. What's -6 times -1? What's 3 plus 6 plus 1? 10. So I have the point -1, 10. So I'm going to come over here and say -1, 10. The board's making me mad today. -1, 10, and then I'm going to reflect it. And now I can graph my parabola. It is a U. Make sure you make it a U, not a V. Put arrows on it because it goes on forever. Kind of a lot. Kind of a lot for one problem. That's why you don't have a ton tonight. Okay, kind of a lot. Find the axis of symmetry, opposite of B over 2A. Take that value, plug it back into X to find your Y coordinate of your vertex. Then you need 4 other points, but the easy one is the Y-intercept. Use that, 0, 1. And then find one more point and reflect those points. Okay? Questions? Standard form. Standard form. Well, if I have a graph that opens up, the arrows go up. So does it have a maximum value? No, because it goes up forever. So it would have a minimum value. If I have a parabola that opens down, it would have a maximum value. Okay? So if we have y equals x squared, okay, that would just be this parabola here. This parabola would have a minimum value. If I have y equals -x squared, that means my parabola opens down. That one would have a maximum value. When I refer to the minimum or the maximum of a quadratic, think about golfing. If I want to know the maximum of my golf ball, when I have a little chip shot under a tree, I want to see if I can clear the tree. When I'm talking about maximum, what am I talking about? The horizontal distance or the vertical distance? The vertical distance, right? If I want to know the maximum of my golf ball, I want to know that vertical distance. Is that X or Y? Y. That's why it says the Y coordinate is the maximum or the minimum. Now, where will the maximum and minimum always occur? On the what? Vertex. It's always going to be the vertex. So your maximum or minimum is the Y coordinate of the vertex. The vertex. Very good. Okay. So that's all that information. Now let's talk about domain and range. Domain, if it opens up, does it go left forever? Right forever? Yeah. Domain's all real numbers. How about if it opens down, does it go left forever and right forever? Domain is always what? All real numbers. Now the range, if it opens up, you're going to tell me Y is everything above whatever your minimum is. If it opens down, you're going to tell me everything less than or equal to your minimum. The increasing and decreasing thing. You did this in Algebra 1 and you guys didn't like it. You read from left to right. So as I go from left to right on this one, I'm decreasing first. Do you see I'm going downhill? I'm decreasing until I get to that x value. So I would say I'm decreasing for all values of x less than whatever. And then when I get to this x value, I start walking what? Uphill. So now I'm increasing for values of x that are greater than this. Okay. Here, as I read from left to right, I'm increasing until I get to this value. And then I'm decreasing after that value. I think the best way to do this is an example. So once again, still in standard form. Find the minimum, the maximum, the domain, the range. When is it increasing and when is it decreasing? A lot there. Okay. Minimum or maximum? Well, is this... My computer is just so making me mad lately because that means my board's not going to work. So, minimum or maximum, is this one opening up or opening down? Why is it opening up? A is positive, so it opens up. So does it have a max or a min? Has a min. All right. Where does the minimum occur? The y coordinate of the vertex. Okay, so we got to find the vertex. But I got to find what before I can find the vertex? Axis of symmetry. Somebody said it. Skylar. All right, so I'm going to identify A, B. Now it's switching colors on me. Oh, Mr. Pete's. My computer needs a break. Try it again. All right, I need to find A, B, and C. What's the value of A? Everybody. One. Honest to Pete's. Did you guys see this? Mm-hmm. All right. What's B? -2. What's C? I'm to the point where I don't know which video to use today. How do you find the axis of symmetry? What do we do to find the axis of symmetry? X equals what? Opposite B over 2A. So we're going to go ahead and do that. X equals, what's the opposite of B? Everybody. 2 over 2 times, what's 2 times a half? 1. So what's the axis of symmetry? X equals 2. So there's my axis of symmetry. X equals 2. How do I find the y coordinate of the vertex then? Plug it back in. So I have y equals 1/2 times 2 squared minus 2 times 2 minus 1. Find y. Who are we missing that sits there? Dalton. Okay. There's guided notes. All right. What'd y'all get when you plugged in 2? What'd you guys get for y? Did you get, wow, I heard 2 different answers. What'd you get?
I got -3.
Did I hear -3? That's the right answer, -3. Because that would be 4. Half of 4 is 2. 2 minus 4 is -2 minus 1 is -3. So what does this mean? First question says find the maximum or the minimum value. Well, what is the min? You guys told me it had a min. What is the minimum value? A minimum of -3. That's the first thing it asks us. Now, you did not have to graph this. You don't have to graph. This is the middle 2 problems. You have 2 that you have to graph, 19 and 22. Graph like you did before. Find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, the y-intercept, another point. 2 like this. Find the max or min, domain range, and where is it increasing and decreasing, and then 2 like the next example. But let's take a look. Find the domain and the range. So I'm going to think about this graph. Does it open up or does it open down? And it has a minimum of -3. The vertex is at 2, -3. So my graph, I really am not 100% sure what it looks like. So I'm just kind of gonna, it looks something like that, right? I don't know for sure, but something like that. So what's the domain, everybody? All real numbers. What's the range? Y is what? Greater than or equal to -3. Are you guys good with domain and range? Now, let's think about the next part. Okay, here's my axis. I wanted that in red. Here is my axis of symmetry. Here's my parabola that looks something like this. Okay? We're not exactly sure. We just know that the vertex is at 2, -3. So we know that. We know it opens up. So as I read from left to right, am I going up or down first? Down. So I'm going to say I am decreasing when x is what? X is, well, what is x? So when it's values of x that are what? Less than 2. Now, not equal to 2, because right at 2, it's switching from increasing to decreasing. It's neutral at 2. So as I go from left to right, I'm walking downhill until I get to 2. So I'm decreasing for values of x that are less than 2. Once I get to 2, what do I start doing? Walking uphill. I'm increasing. So once I get here, I start going uphill. So now I'm going to say I am increasing for values of x that are what? Good. Increasing when x is greater than 2. What do you guys think there? Is the increasing, decreasing stuff a little tricky? Not really. Do you guys remember that from Algebra 1? A little bit. Okay. Let's look real quick. If I had this graph, I had this graph that looked like this. Okay, right through 2. Domain. All real numbers. Range. Y is less than or equal to 3. Okay? Now, what would you tell me? It is what first? Increasing for values of x that are less than 2, and then decreasing for values of x that are greater than 2. Okay? We good. By the way, max or min? Max of 3. Okay, we good? All right, so we've talked about a couple different forms. Standard form, vertex form, x-intercept form. X-intercept form, okay? Or just intercept form. What's so big about intercept form? Well, I think it's easier if I show you an example. Maybe I have f of x equals 3 times x minus 2 times x plus 4. All right, we talked about how to find the y-intercept. So how do you guys find the x-intercepts? To find the x-intercepts, you let what? Y be 0. Well, remember, f of x is the same thing as what? Y. So we're going to come in and let y be 0. Now, we got to solve this for x. Okay, we got to solve this for x. We are not going to FOIL. Watch. Don't FOIL these. You don't have to. This is what's cool about this. We can use the 0 product property. Guys, if I have 2 numbers multiplied together, and I'm telling you that these 2 numbers multiply together to give me 0, what can you tell me about one of them? One of them has to be 0. That's the 0 product property. Right? If I have a times b equal to 0, either a is 0 or b is 0. One of them has to be 0. Well, I don't have 2 things. I have 3 things. I have this times this times this. So I always say, okay, so either 3 is 0 or x minus 2 is 0, or x plus 4 is 0. Now, some of you are still stuck back here. 3 is 0. What's she talking about? Do you have anything to solve there? No. So that goes away. What do you do to solve here? Add 2, you get 2. What do you do here? Subtract 4, you get negative 4. So my x-intercepts are 2, 0, and did you guys have to do any work to get from here to here? Could you have picked that out now? What are your x-intercepts? 2, negative 4. Done. There's my x-intercepts. That's why it's nice, x-intercept form. Quantity times a quantity. Now, it's still a quadratic because if you were to FOIL it, you get x squared plus 2x minus 8, multiply the 3 in. So it is a quadratic, okay? But it's nice because you can pick out the x-intercepts. Now, watch what happens once I pick out the x-intercepts. I'm telling you I have an x-intercept here and an x-intercept here. What can you tell me about the axis of symmetry? In the middle. Has to be in the middle, right? This is symmetrical about those 2 points, so that has to be in the middle. How do you find the middle of 2 numbers? Add them up and what's 2 plus negative 4? What's negative 2 over 2? There's the equation for your axis of symmetry. Now, how can we find the y-coordinate? Well, take this and plug it in there. Find one. Let's do last example. Graph negative 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1. Label the x-intercepts, the vertex, and the axis of symmetry. Okay. We got this. First of all, does this open up or down? Okay, so why is it open down? Okay, A is negative, so we know it opens down. So just, mental now, it opens down, so when I'm done, it should open down. All right, because that's one thing that when you guys graph these and they're wrong and you, opens down, question mark? Okay, you make sure it opens down. All right, next thing. What are the x-intercepts? Okay, I've heard negative 3, 0, and what? Did you guys have any work to show for that? You could go through the whole work I showed in the last slide, but why? You don't have to. We know when I let this be 0, that has to be negative 3, or that has to be 1. So I'm going to come over here and plot negative 3 and 1. Now, how do I find the axis of symmetry? Well, if it's symmetrical about those 2 points, I know it has to be in the middle. So what am I going to do with those 2 points? Add them up and okay, what's negative 3 plus 1? And what's negative 2 over 2? Don't forget x equals negative 1. So when you come over here and plot this, make sure it's in the, does it look like it's in the middle? I mean, if it is off-centered, you have done something wrong somewhere. Now I got to find the y-coordinate. Well, what do I know about x? X is what? Put it in both of those places. So now I'm going to come here and say, okay, well, y is equal to negative 2 times negative 1 plus 3 times negative 1 minus 1. Some of you will grab your calculators. Some of you will do your parentheses first. What's negative 1 plus 3? 2. What's negative 1 minus 1? What do you get when you multiply negative 2 times 2 times negative 2? Not negative 8. Positive 8. Negative times a negative is a positive. So that means my vertex is at what? Negative 1, 8. So have I answered all the questions? The x-intercepts, the vertex, axis of symmetry. So So -1, +8. Now, Mrs. Neville said their house city what? 5 points. So we're going to make a tiny little XY chart. And what's an easy X value that we could maybe use that's not being used? I mean, I can't use -3, I can't use -1, and I can't use 1. But I could use what? 0. Yeah, work smarter. Use 0. So when you come up here and plug in 0, you have -2. Well, what's 0 plus 3? 3. And what's 0 minus 1? So what's -2 times 3?
6.
Times -1.
6.
Over 0, up 6, reflect. Does it look like a parabola that opens down? You betcha. Make it a U. Put your arrows. It goes on forever. Now, I know if you guys wait until lunchtime on Monday, this might be a little gone. Okay? One thing you can do is watch my video. You can go back and watch my video. But did you guys remember? If you go to your textbook and go to your ebook, okay? Do you guys remember? Go to your ebook. Okay, I want to show you this. And if you go to your ebook, and you're like, man, she has me doing number 19. I just don't remember 19 at all. Remember 1933, and then on the next page, okay, any of the ones that are blue, what's that little red thing next to it do? It's a video with somebody else explaining. Maybe you don't like the way I teach. Here's another video. Click on it. You got this cool looking math dude explaining. And he goes through that again. So you can either watch his little video or go back and watch mine. Any questions at all? All right. Have a fantastic weekend. You have 4 graphs, 2 that you don't have to graph. Follow the directions. Answer all the questions. Have a fantastic weekend.